This is our special segment for Children's Day in India. Our guest today is Mr. Kailash Satyarthi. I strongly believe the person needs no introduction. He has raised an untiring voice against child abuses all over the world. For his contribution to the cause, he has received the Nobel Peace Prize in 2014.
My pleasure, Madhumita ji.
So, Mr. Satyarthi, we all know that you are striving very hard to create a child-friendly world. How are we doing as a nation to create a better world for our children?
Well, India has made remarkable progress over the years, and we are definitely moving towards betterment of our children. We have strong constitutional provisions, we have good laws, we have institutions and mechanisms to help and protect our children. But in spite of all this, millions of children are living in extremely inhuman conditions. Many of them are forced to work as child slaves or bonded child laborers. Millions of children are working as child laborers. Thousands of girls are trafficked from different parts of India to work as child prostitutes or child slaves. Opportunities and freedom in their life, then we have to think as a society. We cannot blame simply the government or any institution. We have to think as a nation that why our children are suffering so much, why our children are not free to become children and enjoy fullest of their childhood, and the guarantee of constitutional provisions must be in practice.
So after you received the Nobel Prize in 2014, the cause has received a lot of global attention. So what are you proposing to do as your next course of action to eradicate this menace from India and for wherever it has existed?
Well, the eradication of child labor or child slavery, and in broader terms, abolition of violence against children needs multi-pronged strategy and efforts. So laws are important. Their enforcement is much more important. Equally important that governments at the state level as well as the central government spends adequate money on the well-being of children. But equally important is the social will. The mindset should be child-friendly mindset where we learn how to respect and love our children. Just adoring the children as well as just showing kindness and doing charity to them is not enough. We have to listen to the voices of children as friends, and then we have to devise our approaches to find the solutions of the problems they are facing. So now I'm going to launch two major initiatives, or I would say the most ambitious initiative in the history of humankind. The one is to create a moral platform where the strong voices of reforms and morals could emerge from India to globalize compassion for children. So what I call this initiative as Laureates and Leaders for Children. Brotherhood, global sisterhood. So why can't we do it from here? So the idea is to host the first ever summit on 10th and 11th of December at Rashtrapati Bhavan. And I am so happy and proud to say that 34 Nobel laureates from different disciplines have endorsed that idea, and they would join sooner or later. But out of them, 14 agreed to come to India to take part in it. And apart from these Nobel laureates, we are also inviting about 15 moral leaders, those who have shown in their own countries and globally their impact for the betterment of humanity and children. So about 30 laureates and leaders would be assembling And in addition to it, there would be about 150 leaders from all walks of life, maybe academicians or corporate leaders from cinema, world, and sports industry. So we are also assembling them in addition to these 30 laureates and leaders. So that is going to be the first ever. The conventional wisdom to solve the problem has a limit. So let us generate that moral power which cannot be ignored by any country or any United Nations agency. So that is the idea behind this initiative. But on the other hand, at least 100 million young people in universities, colleges, professions, schools are not only enthusiastic and full of energy, but they have a strong passion to do something good for the society. They have a purer element of idealism to make the world a better place. So why can't we harness that tremendous wealth of idealism and passion for good which exists among those young people? So 100 million young people would be addressed to become the voices, spokespersons, champions and change makers for their 100 million left out sisters and brothers. So it would be 100 million for 100 million campaign. That would also be launched on 11th of December in India. We wanted to begin it from India. Then it is going to be global very soon. And President of India is going to flag it off.
I'm sure that would be a success. But what I'm a little concerned about is, how do we reach the grassroots people where the practice is so pervasive? Say, for instance, in middle-class homes. We are aware why it is wrong, but we still do it. What about the poor families who send their children to the fields to work? And as you know, the new bill has excluded the family from its purview. So how do you see this goodwill, this moral rights trickling down to that grassroots level?
So on one hand, we wanted to build that thing at the top level, but I'm also aware that the outreach and moral power and authority of Nobel laureates go across all these layers. And in almost every country, the ordinary people. So we have been spearheading several campaigns. We organized the marches across the length and width of the country just to reach out to the poorest of the poor and remotest areas in the villages. Like we organized the march from Kanyakumari to Kashmir to Delhi, which has covered almost 15,000 kilometers zigzag distance, and we met crores of people directly or indirectly during our marches. So that's one way of involving and educating people, because yatras and marches are the old Gandhian as well as the old cultural strategy or way to mobilize the conscience of people. So that we try to do. One example is we work across 500 odd villages in India, what we call the child-friendly villages. The whole idea behind a child-friendly village is that all children are free from child labor, child marriages, child exploitation, sexual abuse, etc. Then all children attend schools, irrespective of their gender or caste or whatever. And then thirdly, all village children form their children's parliament or Bal Panchayat by way of democratic elections. So thus we try to inculcate democratic values among young people and the values of participation and leadership. Then fourthly, the village panchayat or the village institution, which is an elected body with power and money, agrees to work hand in hand with the children's parliament or Bal Panchayat. So panchayat of children as well as the panchayat of the villagers sing together on issues related to children, and they respect each other.
How many such child-friendly villages do we have in India? Like, are they more concentrated in any part of the country, or are they well distributed?
We have now about 500 villages, little more than 500 villages, and they are in Rajasthan, Uttar Pradesh, Jharkhand, Bihar, Madhya Pradesh. Then we have some in Karnataka, Yeah, mainly in those areas.
I'm so glad to hear about it. This has been a significant year for the children with the passage of the Child Labor Amendment Bill, about which you have written and talked about so much. Do you think the bill would be effective in protecting our children against exploitation? What are the loopholes there? What are the advantages we get from that bill?
There are advantages definitely, because child labor became a cognizable offense now, so the police has to act, and an FIR has to be registered in each of those cases. So that's positive part. It had much more deterrent provision of deterrent punishment in the new law, amended law. So that's also very important. Then the fine imposed on the employers is much more bigger than ever before. So those are the positive elements in it. Now we are struggling and working closely with the authorities and the government that some of those loopholes could largely be addressed in the rules, like the definition of hazardous labor. That could be expanded, because there is possibility to expand the list of hazardous occupations. So if we are able to ensure that all those major places, occupations and industries which are hazardous for children are listed under the prohibitive part of the law, then we can definitely do much better, and the government can do much better. So we are working on it as well. Then we have to ensure that the right to education law is properly enforced. So if we combine all those things together, I hope that we will move in right direction. But of course, there are loopholes, and it would have been much better that those loopholes would have been addressed properly in the main body of the law.
So, Dr. Satyarthi, we hear this very often, that the Western world, it doesn't have child labor because it has the resources to deal with it. And India has it.
No. Let me tell you, I'm interrupting you, because I myself helped in freeing a number of children from the United States of America. A number of children, local as well as Hispanic, from Haiti, from Mexico, from other neighboring states, are trafficked to work as child laborers in the fields, in Florida, in other part of western coast. The children are still working in tobacco, then potato, tomato, and oranges fields. So they are working in very, very bad conditions. And unfortunately, most of these Hispanic children don't have proper documentation, like their passports or visas. Therefore, they are much more miserable. So these things are happening. We come across children working in Italy, in Portugal, in some other places. There's different form of minors working in England. So like domestic help are sometimes found in United Kingdom. Of course, in the Western Europe, especially in Scandinavian countries, I've never come across any incident of child labor. So that is there. But Japan, which is considered to be comparatively richer countries, we see the problem of child labor, child pornography, child prostitution in Japan as well. So we cannot just pinpoint India alone.
Now, talking about health hazards, all the interviews that I have been reading so far, you talk a lot about health hazards of children. Now, a kid does not need to be a child labor. Just think of the pollution we are going through over the last few days. And I know you have made this comment, and I completely agree with it as a mother, that our children are dying piecemeal. As someone who advocates children's right, what kind of measures would you propose so that we have cleaner air for our kids?
Well, it's most ironical that the children suffer those problems and those sins which they are never responsible for, which they have never committed. It is we who do all these things. May it be the wars and insurgencies or conflicts, may it be the natural disasters, which are again man-made disasters, and now this kind of disaster of making almost half of the North India as a gas chamber, including Delhi in particular, is so serious. And the children again are the worst victims of this situation. So first of all, I realized that ordinary citizens in Delhi, every common person must feel that they are responsible for this thing by way of using extra vehicles, sometimes during Diwali, for instance, and marriages, people use firecrackers as the status symbol or as fun or a kind of religious activity. So unfortunately, these are the things which are contributing to it. But I would say that the governments have not paid enough attention and were not really serious to such issue. And now everybody is shocked. Supreme Court of India has taken it up seriously. The National Green Tribunal has been quite strong on the government measures. So government could have done more, but they can do more. I think now the things are at least much better on paper. May it be the sprinkling of water, which was not done unfortunately. May it be curtailing the movement of old vehicles or entry of unlimited number of trucks in Delhi. So these things were responsible, and I hope that governments, the central government as well as the state government, will prioritize those issues. Because we have already lived our life, but not the children. If they suffer right from childhood and their tender organs are being destroyed every day, every minute, it's a shame for all of us.
I was going through the National Sample Survey Organization's report, and they point out that girl child are more exploited than little boys. They work more, spend more hours, especially in fields, agricultural fields. Do you think there is a gender aspect to child labor questioning?
Oh, very big gender aspect. I would say, of course, that boys and girls both are sexually abused and misused for pornographic purposes and so on. But being girl sometimes becomes a vulnerability for many girls. So in most of the workplaces, there are complaints of one other kind of sexual abuse for girls. And in India, there are reports which have shown in the past that 56% of our children were sexually abused below the age of 18 in one way or other. So these are alarming numbers or data. And this is again the collective responsibility of society to stop it. No girl must be allowed to suffer because of being a girl. We have to make sure as a responsible society. And I would also think of all those faith leaders from different faiths. Their outreach, their following is huge. And I never see that they are raising these issues that girls must be protected, girls must be prioritized, girls must be saved. So just a slogan, Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao, is not enough. That should be our culture. And that culture could be inculcated or promoted by the faith leaders. Those who appear every day or every minute, 24/7 on TV screens. So, but they hardly talk of protecting our girls from any kind of abuses. May it be the economic abuse or economic exploitation, may it be the sexual abuse. Girls suffer most, definitely.
I constantly hear this, it could be called a myth or a belief, that it is economically profitable to employ children. Do you support that? Do you think it's true?
It's really a paradox that we are not able to understand the vicious circle between the poverty and child labor. And the third dimension is illiteracy. They make a triangular relationship. Globally speaking, 168 million children are working in full-time jobs. So 17 crore children are in jobs. But on the other hand, 210 million means 21 crore adults are jobless. And there are studies which are so revealing that these jobless adults are none but the very parents of these children in most cases, in most countries. So children are preferred because they are cheap or cheapest or free source of labor in comparison to their parents or elder brothers and sisters. So the parents and able-bodied members of the family, adult people, remain jobless and the children are in jobs. So we have to break this vicious circle. Think of a situation that if 168 million children are withdrawn from child labor and their job vacancies are replaced by the able-bodied adult people, primarily by their parents, then the situation of economy would be altogether different. Because then would be much more sharing of profit. There would be much more vibrant economy because these adult people would earn much more. So the human resource through the knowledge would be multiple times more than the so-called human resource as cheap labor manipulated and misused by the employers of children.
It's great talking to you, Mr.
Thank you.
Satyarthi. Thank you for your time. I hope all success to the upcoming summit. And we promise on part of Wion and Z Media that we are going to partner it up and we are going to publicize it all over the world.
Thank you so much. I have full faith in the power of media and particularly Z Media, and through you, we are going to multiply this message worldwide. Thank you so much.
Thank you.